as is always the way, the shopping arrived. So very, very sorry. Good evening all, how are you? You can probably notice we're somewhere a bit different.
I don't know where we are.
We're messed up.
I literally don't know where we are
and mentally
or what we're
messed
doing.
up.
How are we all? So the big news today is obviously this one has caused an absolute stir, hasn't she? Have we seen the headlines? Nadia Sawalha blasts Matt Hancock affair in sweary rant, saying her heart breaks for families of COVID victims.
True.
Fuckers, I think is what they've bleeped out. So just in case you were wondering what the asterisks were for on the sun, fuckers. So I think you're getting a lot of love. I think you've captured the imagination of the population at the moment. Why do you think that is?
I don't think it's necessarily about getting a lot of love. I think it's just, you know, I think that rant that I did yesterday was just from my heart. You know, I didn't think about it. I didn't plan what I was going to say. You know, as I was just saying on Instagram, Mark and I were all the way, we were on a long car journey yesterday, and all the way we were listening to LBC and listening to people's stories and how they've been triggered by Matt Hancock's behaviour. Because let's make this really clear, I don't care at all about anybody else that breaks the rules. Do you know what I mean? If teenagers were having sex anyway, good on them. I really don't care about that. But what just stuck in my throat so badly was this just blatant breaking of the rules by the man who made them. And then his posh boy, bully boy friend, who has done all through his life, has cheated and lied, coming to the fore and saying, I've accepted his apology and the matter is closed. And I just think that a lot of you guys felt the same way, that was just a bit too bloody much, actually. Are you really expecting us to roll over and accept that?
I think what's getting me is a lot of people, there are quite a few people, 25% of people don't think he should be fired. So there's a healthy minority of people who feel that people are mistaking that this is about the snogging. It's not actually literally about the snog. I couldn't care less what he does in his private life. It's not a judgment, moral judgment, though morals should come into it. It's the fact that a bunch of supercilious Etonites, for whom this crisis doesn't touch the edges of their lives, and even when it does touch the edges of their lives, like Boris, he then promptly forgets it and returns to the comfort and safety of his life, have absolutely no connection nor understanding of what it means, the optics on something like this, when they say, the matter is done, the matter is closed. There was someone on the radio yesterday who talked about the fact that it was quicker to bury his dad than it was to order a coffee.
Because they were only allowed to spend 5 minutes at the funeral. You know, they had a very traumatic, sudden loss of their father, he and his brother and sister, and they were only allowed 5 minutes. And he was just, as I said in my rant yesterday, you know, he was just, you could hear these stifled tears. And he just kept apologising over and over. It was Sheila Fogarty, wasn't he? He just kept saying, I'm so sorry, but I'm just so angry. And he couldn't speak. And that was one person that had been triggered. I know Zoe, who follows us on here, you know, that picture that you posted yesterday, Zoe, of you looking through the window, the steamy, wet window at your beloved grandmother, knowing that was the last time you could see her and having to look at her through a window. Yeah, exactly. The matter is not closed. Just because Boris has said it is closed, we really have to stay really angry and not allow that.
He will rue the day he used those words.
That's
he
really
will rue
bad.
the day he used those words. And the main reason Boris can't fire Hancock is that Boris has done everything even worse. So for him to sort of fire Matt Hancock for potentially employing an aide on public finances, for him to have been unfaithful, for them to be this query in the first place, for him to have compromised security, because let's face it, if there's this film of him snogging, what else could be leaked from this place?
This is in the ministerial office where he has the phone calls, the Zooms with other leaders, the decision making. It's time and time again when he stood up on that podium and told us that as a nation we have to do this. When he asked for, what's his name, the scientist, to resign, that it was a police matter because he'd been caught, Neil Ferguson, because he'd been caught doing exactly the same thing. I was watching, I think it was GMBT.
He was breathless with disbelief when that happened.
Yeah, when he looked down, well now when you look at it with hindsight, you realise why he was breathless.
Well, no, yeah, but
I
he
think
may
it's-
not have been in this clinch then. This was last year, wasn't it?
Clinch.
So he may not have been in this clinch or had these clinches,
Exactly,
these
you
many
see,
clinches.
Why aren't Labour challenging? What,
Oh,
I
hang
mean,
on. That's the big
let's
one.
go on to that next
hang
bit
on.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Why aren't any other politicians?
Well, no,
throwing them to the wolves
some of them
over
are.
this?
Interestingly,
some of them
Norfolk's
Conservatives
MPs, some Conservative MPs are coming out now. No one in the cabinet. What shocks me, this is what shocks me to the core, is that there's not a single person in this government's cabinet, at the top end of government, who believes that what's going on is sufficient to step aside and go, do you know what? This is not what I signed up to as to be in terms of being a public servant.
Have none of them got a conscience?
Have none of them.
I mean, yesterday, Mark had seen the photo. He was upstairs and I was listening to Nick Ferrari and he was asking that Shaps guy, Nick Ferrari, shame on you the way you asked those questions yesterday. Shame on you. I was listening to this. I had no idea that it was a photo of him snogging, right? It sounded like it was a photo of him shaking hands.
Matt
when he
Hancock's
shouldn't
resigned. He's just resigned.
Yes!
It's just happened.
Yes! Maddie, he's resigned. Yes!
I'm just trying to find the story at the moment. Hold on 1 second.
Oh my God, he's done it. Absolutely, because
It
the
was
matter
utterly
is
untenable.
not closed.
The matter was never
my
closed.
God, oh my God.
Just waiting for the story to be confirmed. But
Because
I've
a
just
lot of the
seen-
Tories were actually, weren't they? The backbenchers were turning against him, but none of that fucking useless cabinet, because they're all watching their own jobs. I couldn't have not said anything. Anyway, when Nick Ferrari was questioning Simon Shapp said, "Oh, I'm sure he kept to all the rules." And I was just listening to this, not thinking much of it. And then when Mark came down and showed me the actual photo, it was like, how could anyone say he was sticking to the rules? Oh my God, this is amazing.
Matt
news.
Hancock resigns after
Yes!
affair with aide is exposed with explosive pictures. Here it is. Nadia, you brought him down. Matt Hancock has tonight resigned after footage of his clinch with a senior aide was published by The Sun. He's quit his government post in the wake of mounting pressure from colleagues within the Conservative Party. His resignation came despite Boris Johnson refusing to fire him.
Do you think Boris must have said to him, "You've got to resign"?
They will have said this is it. Well, I personally, I think civil war would have developed if he
I
hadn't.
think they started to feel.
I mean, civil war in the
that it
broad,
was
in the way that the
very-
British do civil war.
Yeah, not like actually
Not-
taking
no,
up arms.
I mean,
but,
sort of dipping biscuits
But
and
the
stuff.
country were starting. I mean, the amount of private DMs I've had from people saying, oh my God, I so want to speak out, I so want to say stuff as well. I think it's just too much.
Well, listen to
It was
this.
just too much now.
Listen to this. It said this morning, Mr. Hancock faced fresh embarrassment when an ally booked in to defend him on Radio 4 didn't turn up. The unnamed supporter was due to be interviewed, but presenters Michelle Hussain and Martha Kearney were forced to explain that he's not been answering his phone. The pair told listeners, we've been expecting to speak to a supporter of Matt Hancock, but he's not answering his phone.
Wow.
So
And the thing
I think
is-
they've had a lot of pressure from backbenchers. I think, there are a lot of Conservative MPs, and I've seen a lot of Conservative supporters who are outraged by the hypocrisy and the barefaced flaunting of the rules that we've all had to sort of observe, and where we haven't observed them, had to take ownership of it and apologise and acknowledge and recognise. And so you know what?
But isn't it
the
despicable that it got to
superciliousness.
this? It's despicable that it got to this, because the thing is, I'm really glad he's resigned, but I've still got that gnawing in the pit of my
there's a
stomach
knot.
that they thought that we were just going to shut up and they were just going to tell us that this was okay, just
Yeah.
like they did with Cummings when he went off to Barnard Council, and we were at the height of the most terrible lockdown, weren't we? We were all so miserable, and they all came out, and as James O'Brien said on LBC yesterday, I kept thinking when on the Cummings, one of them is going to come out and say this is completely unacceptable, and nobody did.
But Boris could never have. I mean, I know a lot of people are saying Boris should have sacked him.
He should have.
Boris morally could never have sacked him for what
he's
he'd
done
done,
the
because he's
same.
done the same, if not worse.
It would have left him open.
Someone was just asking, what does this mean that's next? Well, one thing I know that couldn't have happened, we couldn't have seriously listened to Matt Hancock in the winter months, if there's a resurgence of anything in the winter, could we? And seriously listen to him telling us to wear our masks and do stuff. So that had to, I kept saying yesterday in the car that Boris had given him his support. I said, this is untenable. It's
Yeah.
utterly untenable. He can't stay, he will go. So I think it was inevitable. What happens next is I do think there's another by-election. I do think we could be beginning to see the cracks in this Conservative government, not because of their efforts with the pandemic. What really annoyed me about Matt Hancock was, if you go to his Instagram even, he constantly goes on about the numbers, and okay, he's the health minister. It's the work of the NHS, it's the work of GPs, doctors,
he's taken all the glory.
And it's the work of all of the, the population of the UK.
Oh, he's on Twitter now, announcing his resignation.
That has successfully managed to pull off this vaccination programme, not Matt Hancock. And so to not have to see his supercilious face again, pretending that he's the man who's responsible for everything, is just
of course, the next fear is who the hell will that idiot Prime Minister put in his place?
Who will he put in next? Here's the biggest conundrum, though, for Boris Johnson. It's widely accepted that Boris was going to use Matt Hancock as a scapegoat and a sacrificial lamb for when the COVID inquiry happens.
Apparently, that's why he didn't sack him.
That's why he didn't sack him.
He needs them to throw him under the bus.
Yeah, they held him in order to throw him under the bus. So what is going to happen when the COVID investigation
hang on, he's live.
Happens?
For health and social care.
Hold it up.
I understand the enormous sacrifices that everybody in this country has made, that you have made, and those of us who make these rules have got to stick by them, and that's why I've got to resign. I want to thank people for their incredible sacrifices and what they've done. Everybody working in the NHS, across social care.
Because I don't know what messages are coming in. I can't show my phone.
Oh.
Oh, it's cut off.
Oh, it's cut off.
Can we get it on here?
I can't show them it though.
So there he is, actually standing there in an AirTex shirt, doing what he now.
I'm slightly worried. I'm slightly worried he was building towards the tears that we saw on GMB. I mean, that was another crucially difficult moment. And the terrible thing is that maybe he was crying for real, but it just felt like the tears of crocodile tears, was it? Tears of a clown. So there you go. So what do you think, Nads? What do you think's next? I've told you what I think.
Do you know what? It's really weird because whoever it was that just commented there, I'm so glad because he had to go, but I still feel just as angry. It's really weird. I don't feel any relief from it because I think they're still laughing. I think they're like, oh, well, we'll let him go now. I don't think this is about them knowing that what they've actually done to people. You know, I'm still thinking of that man on LBC. I'm still thinking of, people like Zoe on here and Dawn on here and all the people that have had such a terrible time through this last year and a half that we haven't. We haven't lost our job. We've still got our home and we haven't lost anyone, touch wood, to COVID. And I just think, I don't think they're necessarily, what would have been better if right when he'd been caught, that the Boris or somebody from the cabinet said, this is absolutely reprehensible. God knows how this must leave you all feeling with everything we've asked you to do. And it would, but it's like too late. It's not, it's too little too late.
I think that the Minister for Vaccines will be put in charge of the Ministry for Health. I think the optics on him are quite good. I think
he seems like a very decent chap.
Well, no, and I think that he seems very sort of unegotistical, if any politician can be unegotistical. What's his name? He's Jordanian, isn't he?
Nadim Zahawi.
I think he would be a good choice. I actually think if I was Boris, I would look to usher Nadim Zahawi. I would usher him in quickly because I think you could argue easily as Boris that he is more plugged into the vaccination programme and the mobilisation of it. And it has been successful from a purely sort of administrative execution sort of level. I mean, I'm not sitting here wanting to help this government out of anything. I don't want to sit in here suggesting who would be a good replacement. I think they've completely screwed up. I think they're completely out of touch with the nation. I've been saying this before this COVID crisis. It's fucking petrifying how this country, and we have willfully handed it over, the keys of our car, over to Eatonites. Where is Labour?
Where the hell are you?
Where is the Labour Party?
I mean, what the hell is going on?
Where is Labour?
I'll be surprised if Keir Starmer even makes a statement now.
I mean, I haven't heard Keir Starmer's voice once.
James O'Brien kept saying on LBC yesterday, he goes, we keep falling into this trap that there is actually a plan. You know, and even today, you said earlier, I wonder if Labour have got something that they're going to do next.
Well,
we're falling into that trap again.
No. I wondered whether Labour were behind the leak or were perhaps behind this whole thing. It's probably much more likely to be Dominic Cummings.
If I had to take a guess, if my life depended on it, I would say, of course I don't know, and this is complete supposition, I would say that Dominic Cummings, it sounds like Matt Hancock was a very unpopular chap in the corridors of Westminster. He's not very liked. Did you see the clip of the film yesterday when they were asking the head of NHS England if they thought Matt Hancock was any good? This is from quite a while ago, and he refused to answer the question. It was the most embarrassing thing.
Well, I mean, whatever you think of Dominic Cummings, let's face it, you know, one thing that Cummings was very clear about in his statement to the House of Commons was that he lied once, he lied twice, he lied repeatedly.
I asked the Prime Minister almost every day to fire him. So because he seems, and again, this is all supposition, to have been very unpopular, Matt Hancock, I wonder if Cummings, you know, was able to get close to somebody that is close to his, you know, has access to his office.
It's a big accusation. This is a huge supposition.
I'm just guessing. I'm just like, if I was writing the novel, this is what I would do. I would say Cummings, because he seems hell-bent on revenge, doesn't he? I mean, how did they get those shots?
Well, exactly. I mean, I think as someone suggested, it was probably a security guard was paid big bucks to do it. I mean, I heard
he didn't know there was a CCTV camera in his office. That was a hidden camera.
How did he not know that there was CCTV?
That's what I mean. I don't think there was CCTV.
Hi Holly. Most half-assed resignation in history, the end of his Twitter resignation.
Was it?
Once again, Mr. Hancock, he still will never be held to account. This is the problem when you get a resignation, actually. He'll be ushered off into the sort of, you know, the wings of the Conservative Party, and there won't need to be too much sort of examination of him until it gets to the inquiry. And then there will be.
Mark, I mean, there are accusations of criminal behaviour here because of all these, contracts that he's allegedly, you know, profited out from by, you know.
God, Faith Goodman, what if Michael Gove takes over? I mean, that you would be deaf, dumb, and blind to not understand.
Because that was the discussion between Cummings and Boris. Boris said, "I'm going to put Gove in charge."
Oh my God, are they going to put Gove in charge? That'd be like putting Mr. Bean in charge.
God.
Oh God. But more importantly, where is Keir Starmer? Does anyone know? I mean, I'm literally asking.
Lee there.
I'm literally asking the question, where is Keir Starmer?
Can't believe it's taken him this long to resign, be sacked, ridiculous. I still feel mad, Lee. I still feel mad.
I think it's left, Emma Carter was saying the same thing, I think it's left a lot of us feeling the injustice. And of course, as I mentioned in the title, there's huge protests going on across the UK. I do think for me personally, this is a personal opinion, I do still think that there is a distinction between the hypocrisy of one set of rules for the government and the elite and a different set of rules for the majority of people in the country versus just randomly saying we just mustn't all wear masks and we need our freedoms back. I think there's a middle ground to be struck. I think there are going to be countless situations in which wearing masks is totally appropriate. I don't think, what I fear is that there's going to be a sort of ripping in the complete opposite direction against all suggestions of any concern or stepping cautiously. I think, you know,
this is the fire that the Conservatives have been playing with, and they have lit it.
Yeah, you're right.
Because the injustice of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember before Cummings, I hate the Tories. I didn't vote. The Tories were both, Labour voters, but I was behind them. I thought, you know, this is the country pulling together. There's a lot I don't like about them, but, you know, they're doing their best in a horrendous situation. But after the Dominic Cummings, and when we saw, we were like, oh, right. So it was okay for him to travel. Oh, so maybe it's not as bad as they're saying it is, because they don't mind when it's one of their chaps. So it's like I was talking to somebody Thursday, who lives right near Chequers. And apparently on the dot, 4:00 on a Friday, every Friday, he arrives to his country home with all the cars. They have been living a very different lockdown from most people.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, very different. And then still they've been playing how they want to play. And let's not forget, I will never mind forgiving Boris for not sacking Matt Hancock. I'm never going to forgive him for holding back on closing the borders once we knew the Delta variant was as dangerous it was, because he still wanted to get his trip into India. And Matt Hancock, every time he's asked about that, has been so arrogant. Oh, yes, well, I've heard this theory. Let me tell you. We went with the data on that. No, you didn't. It's been proven. You closed the borders to Pakistan that didn't have anything like the problem that India had, and you kept the India open because Boris was embarrassed to say that we were going to close the borders with his big meeting in India. It's just so many things. Like you said, Mark, at the beginning, this isn't about this snog. This is about everything that's come before it and the last drop in the bottle. And we've gone, do you know what? We can't take anymore. And that's why they've lost the people now.
Can I tell you who my heart goes out to right now, okay? My heart goes out to the NHS. It goes out to the likes of Chris Whitty, Patrick Vallance, all of the kind of scientists, whatever we lay people think of this situation. They are presenting the facts. You might disagree. There might be more than one opinion on how to read the statistics and what have you, the severity, whether it's equivalent to the flu, whatever. But I feel that the Whitties of the world are trying to do their best. It's the government that then makes policy. And I get really worried for the NHS because I think you're absolutely right. They've stoked this fire, the Tories. They've lit this fire. This has lit this fire. And now I think we have a situation where absolutely everyone is going to kind of say, fuck it, it's over, fuck it, it's absolute, and forget that actually there was some detailed science behind this somewhere. Admittedly, where is it? But that also is this government's handling. We don't know where the science sits. They've never shown us the data. Andrew Lloyd Webber was brilliant yesterday saying, I've seen the data reports.
He knows somebody very close to the report.
Exactly.
Told him, the reason they won't show you the report is there is no evidence that you can't open theatres.
So, it's not just about the data being, I think we all want the end that we want. Most of us want to be out of this crisis and life to be back to normal. I've often been of the opinion that we might just want that, but now might not be the right time to have that. But what this whole, piss poor fucking show by Matt Hancock proves, and Boris, I don't think Boris will be able to run away from the fact that he didn't fire him. I think that's where we need to keep pressing the point. Why didn't he fire him?
But I think again that is a fart in our face. They're just going, pff, and like Holly said, and Lisa and others have said, he's just resigned. What? That I don't think this is going to work.
No, I don't
to
think
just
it is.
make people feel okay
I don't think
because
this is gonna
he
satisfy.
should have been sacked. Even now, Boris should say, actually, he didn't resign, I sacked him. We need to hear he was sacked because his behaviour was, untenable with that of what the government has been been telling us we will need to do.
Did someone say that he was actually crying again in the Twitter feed?
No.
I think someone mentioned that he started crying again. I really feel sorry for his wife. I really feel sorry for his wife, and I think he has 3 children. I feel really, really, really sorry for them.
But the only thing that we can react and respond to is him as a politician has been elected. Whoever voted for, if you voted for the Tories, they're in. And
but there are a lot of Conservative voters who are really disappointed with this. I have to say that it's a little bit like when we used to have these arguments with Xander about republicanism in America. There are a lot of Conservative voters for whom this is a terrible dereliction of duty, that this government has been utterly amoral, immoral, and ineffective in its kind of transparency. I think the thing that we want as a nation all the time is transparency. It's like, equip us with the facts so that we can make a judgment and do the things that you want us to do as best as possible. But what's happened with this government, it's been smoke and mirrors, it's been shadow play, it's been all sorts of covert this, it's been this guy's friend getting this gig. It's like, wasn't there an ice cream manufacturing company that was awarded a PPE bloody contract because it was the mate of someone?
Let's not forget, just last
ludicrous.
week, they were saying the track and trace doesn't work. 600,000 people go missing off it. His actual, when you actually think about the job that he's done all the way along. Now, of course, there's a certain amount that we have to allow because we've never had a pandemic before,
Yeah, but so I think we've all been very charitable about that.
But we've been too charitable way too charitable about it, and far too nice about it. We are the most traumatised country, re-COVID, they say, because of the way that we are spoken to by our politicians and because of the way the media reports. So on the one hand, you're all bastards if you haven't got the vaccine, and then the Daily Mail love every day to post some terrible story about what the vaccine is doing. We have been pushed back and forth. We've had one of the hardest lockdowns in the world. We really have. The longest. It's brutal. It's been really brutal. And they think they still have got no idea how important the words that they use are, because they've got away with it. They've got away with everything. I mean, let's look at the last local elections. People were fucking loving them, licking their asses again, holding Boris up high. And yeah, we've got to get real here.
And yet, at the last by-election, they lost big to the Liberal Democrats. I think that was more about town planning and house building. But let's look at the next by-election. There is another one, isn't there, popping up any minute now?
Let's see.
I think they're worried about that. If anyone can punish the Tories, they need to punish the Tories now. Can I just say also, I think as a nation, I want to read something from Zoe as well afterwards. As a nation, what really breaks my heart is I think as a nation, we've all cut people some slack. Where people have made mistakes, I think we've all said, okay, fair dues, okay, you've made a mistake, don't do it again. You know, where we felt the government was struggling to manage an utterly unprecedented catastrophe happening to the world, we've accepted that. When Boris got ill, we accepted that. We even all softened with Matt Hancock at one point and said, bloody hell, I feel like we've got sort of Stockholm syndrome. We're kind of finding him almost swooning when he comes on now. There was a sort of kick to him that was kind of alluring, and clearly was alluring to the lady in his office. But all of that has been thrown back in our faces. All of it has been thrown back. And I think as a nation, we are at our best, we can be quite forgiving and we can allow people to prove themselves again. And yet with this government, they've taken and taken and taken and taken and taken. Me Too, 37 billion wasted by Dido Harding. 37 billion. Just get your head round
I mean, the figures of the money that they have wasted is just eye-watering.
Zoe Agnew, this isn't about the affair. You're absolutely right. It's about the bullshit and lies. People's weddings cancelled, Zoom funerals, people saying goodbye to loved ones on FaceTime, and the NHS working their asses off.
Whilst you don't stick to the rules.
Yeah. Well, Nadia, you managed to unseat a government minister with your Instagram post. I think that must have burnt them hard.
He needed to be sacked. It's not good enough.
No, and I think this is going to rumble. I think so. In answer to people saying what's next, I think we're going to see a very swift. Obviously, someone's going to be popped in his place. They have to have someone. We're in a health crisis.
Whitman just said, "Have you seen his resignation letter?"
No.
To Boris. In it, he says, "I need to spend this time with my kids." Shame he didn't think about them then.
Charlie Condu, is Charlie Condu?
Charlie Condu. He's an actor.
Has just tweeted saying his resignation is down to you, Nadia. So I think they're going to swiftly get someone in, but I think the horse has bolted a bit here. I think the horse has bolted a bit here, and I don't think we can put the genie back in the bottle, to strike at another analogy. I think we are in a really tricky situation. I hope and trust that the variants and the virus fizzle out with the efficiency of the vaccine program. I really do, because one thing I don't think we're going to be able to now get through due to this government's mishandling is another winter like last winter. I have huge worries about this winter if the science starts to nudge towards the negative. And I'm not suggesting it will, but if it did, how the hell is this government going to be able to keep us all with them? How? If they absolutely need us to.
They've spent all the money, 37 billion. Let's just remember that.
But how will they? Think about that though.
Billion.
Think about. Let's just entertain the worst case scenario. So we hit September, October. You know, double vaccinations aren't actually bringing down the rates that much. We're looking at something that's a bit scary and a bit, oh my God, we're going through Groundhog Day again. How did this government get us through it? How do we all...
I don't know, because we don't trust them.
No, not at all.
We don't trust them. That is a real problem.
Not at all.
It's very scary. But you know what? Today, right here, right now, the vaccines are doing a very good job.
Exactly.
And each variant that comes along, they tell us it's going to be the end of everything, and it's not. And I think we've just got to stick with that.
Jane Ball, I'm beginning to think you're right. Starmer is a Tory, Mark. He's done nothing and only supports this government and abstains.
He is shit.
Shit.
Shame on you.
Shit. Someone
I
actually
have to have another rant about this.
Yeah. Someone actually just said then at least Corbyn kept getting a few hits in the ring, and I never thought I'd say that. You're right. At least Corbyn would get it into the news. There would be some Labour response. I'm not hearing anything. Nothing. I mean, of course, what you have to qualify that for Labour supporters, we don't have a press that steers towards the left-wing view.
Come on.
But there must be, if you're a good enough speaker, you'll get in the papers.
If you're the leader of the Labour Party, you come out, you phone up the press, you say, I'm coming out my front doorstep in half an hour, and they're all going to be there.
Yeah.
And you go hell for leather. This is the point, to take them out from under their feet.
Yeah.
It's very weird. I wonder if he's not very well.
Maybe. Starmer's just not strong enough. Starmer needs a strimmer. All right, guys, stay safe.
We love you.
We love you lots. We'll see you tomorrow. Obviously, the No Name Sunday show will be landing tomorrow. See, and there'll
Hit
be
the subscribe button, guys. We'll be doing coffee moaning tomorrow as well, where I'm sure there'll be a whole lot more news that we can go through. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be told when we're live.
And finally, we're going to drop an old No Name Sunday show on the channel too from a year ago for you to see, from this weekend a year ago, to see the difference of not just the show, but where we were in the world. Yeah. It's always quite startling.
Love you guys.
Bye.